Jackhole Nation, this is the Generation Y Conservative Show with your host, me, Chris Ford. This half hour is brought to you by Patriot Mobile. Now, there's a lot of cell phone companies out there that take your money and put it towards causes that you don't necessarily agree with, but not Patriot Mobile. This is a veteran-led company, and they actually put your money towards causes that you agree with. You get the same reliable nationwide coverage that you already have, and know that your hard-earned money is supporting conservative organizations like the Heritage Foundation, the NRA, and Alliance Defending Freedom. That's a group that I've actually used in the past myself. With plans starting as low as $25 a month, why would you wait? Call 1-800-A-PATRIOT and use the code MOJO50 or visit patriotmobile.com/Mojo50 to waive your activation fee. Join me and thousands of Americans as we switch to Patriot Mobile today and let freedom ring. This half hour is also brought to you by Ministalgia. Ministalgia has a Mother's Day promotion going on right now, and it's actually pretty cool. It's a gift crate just for your mother. The items were chosen because they're the very best of what Ministalgia has to offer for your wife, your mom, or grandmother. She can enjoy the maple syrup with its rich, naturally sweet flavor, full of healthy trace minerals, accompanied by their wild rice pancake mix for the perfect breakfast. Now, I haven't tried that out myself, but I remember Doc Thompson talking about that all the time, about how people would go crazy in the studio over those pancakes. It also comes with hazelnut honey, which is delicious when you add it to things like cereal, hot cereal, tea, or coffee. They have a delicious blueberry jam, which is as tasty as it is beautiful and great on any bread or over ice cream. I've never had jam on ice cream, but that sounds pretty good. And just for her, a pure soy candle, hand-poured, lead and dye-free, with a fragrance to relax and soothe the woman that has worked so tirelessly in your life for the children, right? We know that each time she enjoys one of these beautiful products, she will know that she is cared for. But we also care about you, the listeners. You can actually save 10% this Mother's Day on the Mother's Day crate or any item in your cart when you use the promo code MOM10. That's MOM10. Orders must be received by Sunday, May 5th, to guarantee delivery for Mother's Day. Time flies, so don't wait. Get your gift ordered today, and remember to use the promo code MOM10. Welcome everyone to the Generation Y Conservative Show. I'm glad that you could join me tonight. If you're watching right now, I would encourage you to head over to a couple of the social media sites for the Generation Y Conservative so you can always follow along with what I have going on and also the stories that I probably will end up covering on the podcast. First, I want you to head over to Facebook, where you can search for the Generation Y Conservative and follow along there. You can also hit the Get Notifications button so that you're notified when I post about stories and what I have to say about them. Then, more importantly than that, what I would actually encourage you to do is go to youtube.com/Gen Y Conservative and subscribe to the Generation Y Conservative channel over there as well, because we post the podcast there, movie reviews like the one you're going to see tonight, as well as other things like the Relic Hunter firing line videos that we go in coordination with as well. We have a lot of really cool things happening this summer. We're probably going to do some man on the street interviews as well in regards to politics, so it will be very, very fun. Another reason why I want you to go there, though, is because people like me that do this don't make much money. And YouTube is trying to censor conservatives as much as possible and demonetize their stations or channels as much as possible as well. And I need to hit a certain level of subscribers now in order to start making money on this so that I can continue to provide good content and get the equipment that's necessary for it. So I'm just asking for your help. as a listener to head over to my YouTube channel, hit subscribe, and share it with friends and family as well. Also, if you are tuning in, you can also interact with me on Twitter. It's at GenYConservative without the E on the end, and you can get involved there, and I participate as much as I can in hashtag what I learned today, and along with great shows like Defenders Live and the Conservative Cartel. I'm always listening in on Mojo 50, and I'm just glad that you could be with me here tonight. So first thing first, we are going to get into some entertainment, and the first thing up is actually my Generation Y Conservative movie review of Shazam. Hello everyone, welcome to the Generation Y Conservative review of the movie
Abracadabra.
Wait, no, it's
Abracadabra.
Dave. No, it's a word associated with magic, but it's actually
That's crazy, right?
What are your superpowers?
Superpowers, dude? I don't even know how to pee in this thing.
So how do I explain Shazam? Well, let me ask you this. What would you get if you turned the 1980s Tom Hanks movie Big into a superhero movie, added Superman powers, a dash of adolescent's crude humor, a pinch of magic, and a dash of good old-fashioned, old-school Christian Seven Deadly Sins, and throw it into a blender with Mark Wahlberg's newest foster parent movie, Instant Family? Basically, a good foundational start to Shazam. The movie centers around the character of Billy Batson, a teenage boy who was separated from his mother at the age of 4 at a carnival and has spent his days ever since moving from foster home to foster home while ducking out to hunt down his actual mother in the heart of Philadelphia. Eventually, his antics land him in the Vasquez foster home with other kids, most notably Freddie Freeman, whom you may recognize from the newest iterations of Stephen King's It movie, where he plays Eddie. The Vasquez family are out-of-this-world foster parents who are exceptional at what they do and go out of the way to take care of, guide, and see the success of their foster children. Or are they?
They seem nice, but don't buy it. It gets real Game of Thrones around here. Dude, just messing around. You look at me and you're like, why so dark? You're a disabled foster kid. You've got it all.
Without giving too much away about the plot of this movie, Billy Batson meets a wizard who bestows upon him his power, turning him into an adult superhero with the ability to transfer back and forth to a teen with the simple command of Shazam. With the guidance of his foster brother Freddie, who happens to be a superhero connoisseur, Billy tries to navigate the hero life in possibly the most comedic way you will find to date in the saturated superhero movie market.
You want to try invisibility?
How do I do? Forget it. You know, okay.
Oh my god! It worked! Where'd you go?
I'm right here. You can't see me?
Where? Where?
I'm invisible! I'm right here. I'm invisible! Hey! Nice outfit, dipshit.
The question is, if you had an adult body with the mind of a teen and had superpowers, what would you do?
I'd like to purchase some of your finest beer, please.
The movie has awesome fight sequences, hilarious laugh out loud and applause scenes, and a third act surprise that will have you cheering like crazy. The main villain, played by Mark Strong, can be terrifying, but when you have an actor as good as Strong in the character position, you are bound to get strong results. Pun intended. Perhaps the most surprising character that tends to steal the screen when they are on is the youngest foster kid, Darla, played by Faith Herman, who seems to make everyone smile and laugh.
Listen to me, Darla. You cannot tell anybody about this, all right?
But it's Billy. He's a hero.
Yeah, but if a supervillain finds out that he's a hero, that endangers us, okay? A hero's loved ones are like the perfect bad guy target.
I mean, is she even good at keeping secrets?
Moderate.
No.
Oh, God.
But again, keep an eye out for her character in the third act. DC's Wonder Woman was fantastic. Aquaman was a very fun movie, but Shazam is poised to turn DC into a serious competitor against the behemoth that is Marvel. Shazam is a funny, entertaining, and heartfelt movie that will leave a mark, but be warned, the language is not for young kids. I give Shazam an 8 out of 10 and can't wait for the follow-up that gets to skip the origin story format that unfortunately takes at least a little time to build up. Shazam is in theaters now, and the Generation Y conservative says, go see it.
Your phone's charged. Your phone's charged.
The hell?
All right, I hope that you enjoyed that. Sticking with entertainment, I actually have this story in regards to Captain America's Chris Evans, and maybe you've noticed in regards to Chris Evans showing up on Capitol Hill over the last couple months. There was a picture of him with Representative Dan Crenshaw, and Dan lifted up his eye patch and showed a Captain America fake eyeball under there. So he's obviously a fan of at least Captain America. I don't know so much about Chris Evans, but Chris Evans is one of those liberal Hollywood actors that really gets involved in taking the opportunity to take his soapbox and spew vile hatred in regards to leftist politics and just bash conservatives as much as possible when he is diving into political realms. Some of the stuff he said on Twitter, the way he goes after the president, the way that he goes after conservatives, it's almost like this guy doesn't really care about the conservative end of his fans. And trust me, there's a lot of us out there that really enjoy Marvel movies. We have to swallow our pride and go and see basically the social justice warrior Avengers up on screen when you have Scarlett Johansson, Mark Ruffalo, Chris Evans, sometimes Robert Downey Jr., Don Cheadle, and a couple other of these people get up on stage all the time at award shows and on their social media and bash the right as much as possible. And then they expect us to all go and show up and pay for their movie tickets all the time. They're just lucky that Marvel pumps out such good content all the time that we actually continue to go to see these people. It drives me nuts. But so Chris Evans was actually on Capitol Hill over the last couple of months, and now we're starting to find out the reason why. This is according to Red State. It says Captain America, a.k.a. Chris Evans, made a trip in February to Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., a visit that spawned many tweets and raised eyebrows. Evans has been vocally critical of the Trump administration and conservative policy ideas for some time, and yet many of the legislators he visited were Republicans, and now we know why. Evans has recently unveiled a new website called A Starting Point, a place where he says legislators from both parties have the opportunity to answer questions on any policy idea they choose in an effort to provide a place where people and Evans himself can go to hear both sides of an issue. So this is actually according to CNN. It says the video was sent to members of Congress from both parties late on Friday night, asking them to participate in interviews for the venture, which is intended to address a political climate of partisanship and distrust. And Evans tweeted, I guess the cat's out of the bag on Saturday morning after CNN reported on the video's release. So he said, our goal is to create informed, responsible, and empathetic citizens who are empowered to further their understanding in the world of politics. While there, he and his partners, media entrepreneur Joe Kiani and filmmaker Mark Kasson, met with a dozen senators and representatives. Some of the names on his list included New Jersey Senator Cory Booker, of course, Amy Klobuchar, Eric Swalwell, Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski, who cares, South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, that's a good one, and Representative Dan Crenshaw, who is obviously a future president of ours. Which, isn't that going to be awesome when we get to have a president with an eye patch? That's just going to be one of the coolest portraits hanging up in the White House. So, let's talk about this for a second. Basically, what we're seeing here is that Chris Evans is going to take this website and allow legislators from both sides of the aisle to come and talk about issues. And I think that this is actually a great idea in theory. I think a lot of people have been frustrated for a long time now that we have these legislators that leave their states and their constituents and the people that put them in there to represent them, that then go to Washington, D.C. and completely botch up what the people voted them in for. That's why a lot of people, and it unfortunately will never happen because the people that will be affected by it are the ones that have to vote for it, will always support term limits, right? So a lot of people have been frustrated for years now since internet has become so abundant and fast to people that we actually lose our representatives and senators that end up going off to Washington, D.C. to represent us when they could easily all teleconference in and use a button to vote the way that they want from their districts and actually spend time on the ground with their constituents for most of the time, instead of actually having to gather together in the swamp that is Washington, D.C., where they basically operate in their own little bubble away from everyone that they represent and get away with murder in most cases. And it's just disgusting to see this. Well, so this is actually a good idea. It's a good idea to have a website out there, but the problem is we've gotten to a place now where we can't trust social media to not shut down free speech, right? They are taking conservatives and censoring them. I've had myself, as well as others, that post conservative articles about liberal politicians that are immediately followed by Facebook's own fact check little bar that goes along with it, that you can click on that and go and see that the article was fact checked. I've never seen a liberal article posted where the fact check shows up on Facebook after one of their articles comes out, and most of the time it's just blatant lies that are put out there and slander against people. So it's amazing to me that they get away with both identifying as a platform for people and also identifying as publishers of information. And the reason why they tiptoe on those eggshells is that so the various regulations that go along with each of those types of industries don't affect them. If they identify as a publisher of information, they don't have to abide by the platform rules. But if you're in a congressional hearing and they say, well, you're a platform, then they could say, well, no, we're more of a publisher. So they go back and forth depending on what they're being labeled as, so that they don't have the restrictions. And instead, they end up conservatives end up getting screwed every single time and censored like crazy. So that being said, if these politicians could actually tune in from at home and vote accordingly, still be with their constituents, it would stand for good reason to actually have a website where people and constituents of these politicians could go and read up on the information and try to find out more about it and see where each politician falls on the issue. Because what we end up having is these people standing up in Congress giving these long-winded speeches about how terrible the other side is and what their intentions are without actually hearing the intentions of the people that they're blaming for, right? So get a nice worded out thing that is obviously saved, because nothing on the internet is ever lost. And then next time you actually go to the voting booth and these people are up for re-election, you can actually see what they voted on, how they said it was going to be represented, how they voted on that, and then how they followed through with it. So, for instance, if they actually said that it's going to do A, B, and C, but it never did A, B, and C, it did D, E, and F, and those are things that you didn't want, you should be able to hold that politician responsible for that vote. The problem is that there's a disconnect between the constituents and the politicians that they get involved with and vote for all the time. And it's hard for your average citizen to actually tune in and pay attention to politics when they're busy enough with their own life, their job, their family, their churches, and anything else that they get involved with. At the end of the day, you just want to get home and sit down and watch a little TV, which I think, what was it, Caesar said, give them circus and bread and keep them busy so that they don't actually see what's going on in the background. That's exactly what American politics and politics in any country is actually like. They want you to know that things are going on. It's overwhelming. Let us take care of it. And you guys just go home and watch TV and pay your taxes and everything will be fine. Well, everything's not fine. And so the problem that I have with Chris Evans' theory on this is, while I think it's a great idea to have more information available to the people on the positions of their politicians that they vote into office, I just don't trust people anymore. Facebook, Twitter, Google, YouTube, right? All these sites are censoring conservative talk and shutting down the accounts of these people. And they're in control. There's obviously a liberal bias that goes along with it. When you look at major media, okay, you see across the board that these people are ruling over the conversation, not inviting conservative guests onto their programs, and shutting down any conservative ideas. And the only place that you can get a semblance of conservative ideas on TV anymore is Fox News, and even they're falling apart. The only place that you can really get information is by going on to AM radio. At this point, you might as well have a ham radio to get this information and listen to conservative hosts. And that's the best place to go because they're not politicians that lie to you to be held accountable to these things. The only thing that we can do is give you the information. It's a matter of your opinion and where you go with it after that. So Chris Evans has been an outspoken liberal actor in Hollywood for such a long time that I'm wondering if it's even a possibility that we can trust him as much as we trust things like Facebook, Twitter, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, right? All these places have proven time and time again with a track record that we cannot put our trust in them because we are continually let down, we are continually lied to, and they don't end up representing us. And even if the information does get on there, onto this website for these politicians, who's to say that all the information is actually given, that things aren't taken out, that things aren't censored, right? I don't trust that I can go onto this website and see that if someone said something that actually even shows up onto the website, or that if something is said by a politician and Chris Evans and his team that are behind the website don't agree with it or don't want you to hear about it because they don't want that person voted for, that they wouldn't take it out themselves. I don't know. I'm dumbfounded that we've gotten to a point in our culture right now where we can't put our trust in people. And it's a sad place to be. To that point, I think it's always been interesting that we have grown up, at least my generation has grown up, and my parents' generation and the generation before them, being told continually that there's two things that you don't talk about in public, and that's religions and politics, right? And I always found that fascinating because I think those are the two things that should be talked about in public. I believe personally that the more we talk about those two things, the more we find out that we have more in common with each other than we have in differences with each other. And the more that we start realizing that, the more power is lost to the politicians in D.C. when they use that type of thing to split us up into voting blocks. It's all these social issues, these religious issues, and splitting you down the line with politics that puts you into all these voting blocks. But we find very quickly that if you're talking to someone and they happen to mention that they're of the opposite political party and you never bring up yours, that you can have a conversation with these people and get along with them just fine. Some of my best friends are liberals, right? But we have an understanding with each other. Sometimes you just don't talk about politics, and that's okay with them. But sometimes you have great conversations with people on the opposite side, and you actually get to learn a couple things, especially if you're someone that doesn't pay attention to politics at all, and you've been indoctrinated with a certain idea or ideology that's been beaten over your head for years, and you start to open your eyes and see different things in a different light. For instance, Candace Owens was actually on Capitol Hill this week for a congressional hearing on hate crimes, and she was called as a witness. And one of the people, Lou, I think he's a senator, actually mischaracterized her words in regards to Hitler, and she just tore him apart. But she also did a great job of representing herself and the black community in regards to how Democrats are using them as a voting bloc, promising them things and never delivering on them, and how they are continuing to rely on the black vote to get through and have power. But we're going to talk about some more about politics a little later on. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about guns and something that happened in a news story. We're also going to see the latest video from Relic Hunter Firing Line and the Generation Y Conservative in regards to a team up on that. And we got a lot more coming, including the conservative reflection at the end. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. everyone. Welcome back to the Generation Y Conservative. I'm glad that you could be with me tonight. Last half hour, I actually told you that we would be talking about guns in this segment, but actually that comes up in the second hour. But this half hour is actually brought to you by Riduzone. Now, we all have that promise on New Year's, right? We're a little bit past New Year's, so maybe you guys are checking in on this and seeing where you're at with your New Year's resolution, but I'd say probably 90% of us at least think about and try to do a weight loss program. We have an abundance problem here in America, which isn't usually a problem. We're just blessed to have so many things, and sometimes some of those things is food. And when we have a lot of food, we put on the weight. I'm one of those people. I need to do it myself. Well, Riduzone is America's first weight management supplement of OEA. What is OEA? It is a natural metabolite of olive oil that's produced in the human body, which is really cool. Riduzone is a formulation of OEA and aid healthy weight loss, right? It's safe and FDA accepted by the Food and Drug Administration. The body itself needs 12 liters of olive oil to produce as much as OEA in one bottle of Riduzone. Riduzone supports healthy weight, low calorie consumption, efficient metabolism of body fat. It's a non-stimulant, naturally present in your body already. It's vegetarian and gluten-free and non-GMO. It's patented and ready and accepted by the FDA. So listen, if you didn't catch up, if you're not good, if you're still overweight, if you're having problems, what you want to do is start your weight loss journey now. Check it out at riduzone.com. That's RIDUZONE.com. And when you order, you'll get a special 30% off coupon automatically applied to your 3-bottle, 3-month supply. That's Riduzone, RIDUZONE.com. This half hour is also brought to you by Cat Coolers. Now, this is actually pretty cool. I'm a big fan of coolers. I know coolers is a big thing for people out there, right? People get crazy about their coolers. You know, it used to be everybody would grab one end of those huge coolers and tow it down to the beach and everything. There was one flip open lid. You'd throw a couple freezer packs into there and some ice. You'd pour ice over everything, and you'd have that as your experience. Then all these cooler companies started coming out with all these fancy designs and everything, and really blowing things out of the water. Now, one of the big companies, I mentioned this on the last podcast, actually got involved with kind of where Dick's Sporting Goods was going with being anti-Second Amendment, right? I don't think I need to name that cooler company, but their stock, along with Dick's Sporting Goods, took a major hit and dive, okay? So what's the alternative out there? Well, one of the alternatives that you can go after is called Cat Coolers. They're rugged, and it changes everything. Keeps ice cold for up to 7 days, which is awesome. It's made right here in the USA, which is very important to a lot of us. It's customizable and has 4 different colors: white, black, yellow, and camouflage. Like, that's the color. We'll change that color to, honey, where the heck did the cooler go? I don't know where it is. There's different codes for Cat Coolers, and I think I'm going to have a code coming up soon. It's going to be named after my dog, but I don't have that code yet. But there are a bunch of different codes on here for different hosts. So last week I gave you the code for one of them, which was Cowboy. This week, why don't you try Unleashed, because that's a cool one. The way to go and find these coolers and actually check out everything about them, which is really cool, and you can get a 10% discount, is by going to catcoolers.com. That's CATCOOLERS. For every cooler that is sold there, you get good stuff. You get happy families is what you get. You get good beach days. You get good hunting days. You get anywhere that you tow along those coolers. And that's important to a lot of people. It's important to me. Keeps your beer cold. I'm not a big beer drinker, but my vodka can stay cold in there to mix with my Red Bulls. You know, I just got done talking about Riduzone and my weight problem, and I just add to my health problems with things like that. But anyway, catcoolers.com, CATCOOLERS.com. Use the promo code UNLEASHED and get 10% off your discount. I want to start off this segment in regards to what happened on a Boston College campus recently with a pro-life person who was there to do a talk interacting with a pro-abortion student. Now, if you tuned into the show last week, you heard my personal story in regards to why I'm pro-life and everything that went into that. I'm a third-generation product of rape, okay? And a lot of these people just don't have any respect for human life and can't even identify when life begins. It's really sad. By the way, coming up in the in one of the next hour, we're going to actually talk about one of the reasons why I am a conservative as well. So we're going to go over some of those details too. But let's take a look here at what this student and pro-life interaction actually consisted of.
So, do you think that the children that are apprehended at the border that are in government, U.S. government care, whether it's a U.S. government agency or if it's a Catholic relief agency that's being contracted by the government, do you think like babies who are going to die should be resuscitated and be given care?
Yes.
Okay. Do you believe that like a baby who's born alive during an abortion at Planned Parenthood should get care?
No.
What's the difference? No, my question is, what is the difference? No, because I'm going to answer. I'm going to answer your question. I wrote down your points, but I want to know from you, what is the difference? Why do you care about a mom who's made a dangerous journey through Mexico, through Central America, put her life, her child's life at risk? Why do you care that we should use taxpayer dollars? So say she crosses the border, her child's severely malnourished, and her child is dehydrated, right? For example, my son was in the hospital last week with severe acidosis because of dehydration and could have died. So she comes across the border and she has a baby in her arms that's dying, right? Should we pay for that child's health care?
Yes.
If a child is born alive during an abortion procedure, because sometimes the abortionist misses the heart when they're administering the digoxin, should the abortionist have to provide health care to that child?
No.
Why?
Because they're performing an abortion. So before that, they've already determined that it's not a baby. I know you're telling me that science has determined one thing, but...
You just said they determined it's not a baby. How can an abortionist determine... How can an abortionist not determine it's not a baby? Excuse me, I'm dialoguing with her. How can an abortionist determine it's not a baby? Why is it not a baby? Is what I want you to tell me. Is why do you think it's not a baby?
It's a fetus.
It
hasn't been born yet.
But if it has been born, so if this baby comes out of utero and the digoxin hasn't been successful in inducing cardiac arrest, and this baby is alive,
well, first of all, I think that's a really rare occasion. Thank you. I think it's a really rare occasion. So I don't think it's all abortions, but
it is rare, but it does happen because a group of abortion survivors were just at the White House. So it does happen. So do you think it's a baby?
No.
So this is pretty interesting because the pro-abortion argument really starts to fall apart when you're actually listening to people like this. If you are watching the video right now, you actually saw one of the other students jump up and hug this girl from behind because she was apparently breaking down crying because it was hard for her to answer this question, even though she was the one that stood up and put herself out there to ask a question of the speaker there. What I find fascinating about this is the fact that we're talking about post-birth abortion, which is an abortion was performed, it botched late term, and the baby was born anyway, and it was born alive, and this girl is asked if this baby is born alive and laying there on the table, should it receive any medical attention from the staff that's there? And this girl's answer is no. And her reasoning is because it was supposed to be an abortion in the first place. But there's so many different questions that are asked of her in regards to situational things that she can't get right where a baby is considered to be born under the right circumstances. She can't label when it's decidedly a fetus or a baby, and it all really comes down to, in her mind, a matter of the opinion of those involved. It's not about science. They bring up science, and she even recognizes that science says that this is a baby and says, well, I understand what science is saying, but what I'm saying is it's on the opinion of the people that perform the abortion when it's considered a fetus and when it's considered a baby. This feeds into this whole his truth, her truth, the truth argument where everything comes down to a matter of opinion, and you can't really have a serious conversation anymore in regards to things because it's all subjective arguments based on opinions, and you can't argue anything on that. There's no basis for which you can actually argue facts anymore. And it just gets to this ridiculous place where you can have a righteous argument on both sides based on your opinion and walk away and both be right, even with completely different opinions. That doesn't make sense. There is a right and a wrong answer. One of my favorite things is actually taking a look at that cartoon where two people are standing facing each other and they're both looking down. One sees a 6 and one sees a 9, right? And it says below that it's all a matter of perspective. You're both right. It's all a matter of perspective. Well, no. The truth of the matter is, as one person pointed out at one point in time, that someone originally wrote that number down on the ground. And they either wrote it as a 9 or a 6. So one of those people is right. One of those people is wrong. And you just don't know it at the time. But there is the truth when it comes to that. There is a truth. It's not his truth or her truth, and whoever's standing over this number trying to figure out what it is. One of them is absolutely right. In this case here, this girl in this college setting is crying because she's being asked a tough question, right? And she's talking... Here's the frustrating thing. The left, or specifically those that are pro-abortion, are always using these arguments that typically fall apart in angles like the one that was just presented here. When does life begin? When is it considered a baby versus a fetus, right? And she's acknowledging that science says a certain thing. So that argument falls apart for her. Then she says, well, this baby hasn't been born yet. But the woman clearly points out that what we're talking about here is a baby that's born. Okay? This baby has come out of utero, the abortion has failed, and it's living. At that point, if your argument has always been that it's only a fetus when it's inside the womb and a baby once it's born, now you're actually talking about murder because the baby has been born and you're talking about a post-birth abortion. So that argument falls apart as well. And what you're left with is a crying snowflake liberal student who's standing up, giving her opinion based on things that she's been fed for a lifetime now through public education and different things, probably in a lot of cases supporting friends and family that have gone through things on their own, and she feels that she just has to be there to support them in their decisions despite looking into the facts and science of the matter. And you see this dissolving of society around actually being able to comprehend and intelligently argue for your point of view. She couldn't do it. She couldn't tell you anything about this except for her opinion and her truth. And that's a sad thing, you know. I have more respect for people who can intelligently and honestly and respectfully argue for abortion, even though I think it's reprehensible, wrong, and evil, than someone who's going to stand there and yell at me without their own opinion taking completely over and emotions overflowing from them without being able to actually lay out any comprehensive argument or cohesive argument in regards to why they feel that way, except for blah, 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 teacher told me this, teacher told me that, Planned Parenthood told me this, my friend had an abortion, and I have to support it. Blah, 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 women's health and rights issues, right? That's all you hear. You don't actually hear any cohesive arguments anymore because we have the technology, we have the tools to actually show when a heartbeat is detected, when it's human life. right? And we're just getting to a point where the science that they use in their arguments is catching up to our arguments and supporting us more. And it's not making them happy. That's why they don't want ultrasounds to be performed right before an abortion, because the mother will actually end up seeing a baby in her stomach that's fighting for its life when a needle comes up or a vacuum comes up to suck it out of there. And they actually have to see that this is something that can react and has a nervous system, has its own heartbeat, has its own blood and DNA that's different than the woman's body. It's not part of her body. It's not her body and her choice. It's the choice that she's making for a body that happens to exist within her own, but separate and completely different than hers. Okay. I had mentioned that I wanted to get into some of the reasons why I'm actually conservative, and I want the Mojo audience to actually get to know me a little bit better. Now, I had mentioned in the last podcast my pro-life stance and why I came to that over years of finding out different things in my life and going through all the different arguments and everything, but the conservative part is pretty interesting in and of itself as well. I think I always considered myself pretty liberal in school because that's what school led me to believe about my beliefs. But what was interesting is a couple things. Number one, the Bush-Kerry debates when they were both running for president. I sat there and watched that while I was in college drinking with a couple buddies of mine while we were watching those debates. And I realized that John Kerry was making arguments that the simple education I received based on markets and the supply and demand and different things like that in economics in high school was being completely thrown out the window when John Kerry was speaking about how he was going to act as president. And it just blew my mind. But at that time, I still didn't really take a position on where I was. I also kind of remember things about when I was very young, back in the 80s. My parents had apartment buildings in an inner city near us. And I remember my dad walking into the apartment that he owned one day and seeing the renter sitting in the middle of the week, in the middle of the day, in the living room watching TV. And my dad apologized for opening the door. He just assumed that no one was home and said, "I'm sorry, I thought you were at work." And the guy looked at him and said, "No, I don't have a job." And my dad said, well, realizing that he's still collecting rent, he said to him, "Well, why don't you have a job?" And the guy literally said to my dad, "Why would I get a job for minimum wage when welfare pays me more than that?" Well, they had a good point. How do you blame a person like that? How do you our free market system and the way it's all set up is built to incentivize people to make more money and further themselves and enrich themselves. And I don't just mean monetarily with that either, but when you incentivize laziness, when you give a signal that you're giving the option to a person that you can either sit on your ass all day and get welfare, or you can go out and get a minimum wage job where you're going to work 40 hours a week and still not make what you make on welfare, that's incentivizing laziness, okay? And the one thing that taught me right off the bat was welfare should never be higher than the local minimum wage. And unfortunately, that's what has been going on for quite some time now. The last point that I had, too, was, and I recommend this to everyone, first of all, anyone I talk to, I was a server. I went to 2 colleges for 2 degrees, and through my whole college experience, I was a server at a major breakfast chain that had a fireplace. Let's just put it that way. And I always tell people that if you are going to get a job, no matter what you do, before you get a job, while you're working in college and everything, you should be a server at some point in time to realize what it takes to serve people, to go through the muck and hell of some people's selfish, greedy attitudes, and continue to put on a happy face to survive. I mean, that's what it is. Servers don't make much money. They make like $1 something to $2 an hour, and they rely on tips. And the only way that you're going to get a tip, even with an a-hole customer, is by putting on a happy face and delivering what they want and apologizing on in, whether you're right or wrong. And eventually, when you get out of that job, you are so exhausted with dealing with these scum of society. Sometimes it comes down to the fact that you're serving some sweet old people and they leave you a $2 tip, and it sucks. But you realize you have to realize the situation that they're in with a fixed income. Sometimes you get these big parties and someone thinks that the other person tipped, and you can have a party of 12 and no one tips you, and you get stiffed on a bill that was hundreds of dollars that you should have made a good $20-$40 on, right? My point being on this, everyone should serve at some point in time because it's good life skills to deal with people. That being said, when I was a server, I happened to be at a table one time, and like I said, I'm always listening in, looking for ways to increase my tip, okay? Because that's part of the job. That's how you're getting paid. So you have to be nice to people. You have to schmooze them and everything. And I happened to be at a table and wiping up the mess from the people before. And right next to me were my customers that came in, and they were talking about Hillary Clinton running for senator in New York at the time. And I heard them talking for a little bit, and I turned over and just casually said to them, without any knowledge of politics at the time, well, that's pretty interesting. I think that she would do a good job because I think she wore the pants in the relationship anyway when Bill was in office. And the one woman looked at me with such disgust. She said, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "No, I really do think that Bill was kind of a pushover, and Hillary held that all together. And I think a lot of things that happened because of her." Well, I got laid into on it. This woman said that she was in the Secret Service and served under President Clinton, and that her and multiple other Secret Service agents heard and were abused by Hillary Clinton and her daughter Chelsea, and that multiple times they heard Hillary using the C word in regards to referencing female staff. And I thought to myself, that's amazing, right? How do we have a global coverage of our politicians, especially the U.S. president, and we see these personalities walking across stage all the time, and you think that they're putting on a little bit of a show, right? But you think that you can read their personalities. I've always been good at reading people's personalities, especially as a server, right? And I thought to myself, how could I have missed that? How could I see her running for senator and think that that's a good idea, and yet she is a miserable bitch to her family and staff and people that work for her behind the scenes, right? So what I did was, from then on, I started paying closer attention and watching her on the news and all her interactions and interviews and everything. And it just totally made sense to me. Once you hear that story from someone like me and you start paying attention, whether you're conservative now or not, maybe you're just sitting on the fence, maybe you're trying to figure out where you fall in regards to how you feel about politics, because there's a lot of stuff going on. Numbers are changing all over the place. The president right now, as of right now of this podcast, has a 53% approval rating in a country where every media station is telling you that this guy is hated and should be impeached, right? Must be doing something good. But if you're on the fence and you hear that, all I would ask of you is, maybe you don't have to believe me, okay? But at least watch news programs and see what she does, how she acts, her mannerisms and everything else. And tell me that that doesn't look like something that she would actually end up doing. It is to me. I totally see that. And it's experiences like these that have led me down the conservative road. And I think after in college there, I went full on Republican. I realized that the Republicans were pretty corrupt. I decided that I was a conservative, which at the time is when I started the Generation Y Conservative blog. That turned into another website where I collaborated with a bunch of other people. I was writing for this one website that was involved with LinkedIn and sharing politics there. I think one of my stories is still probably one of the most popular on that website. Brazen Careerist, I think, is what the website used to be called. And I wrote an article in regards to, it was a simple question: why can't we have civil unions for instead of gay marriage, right? And it was a simple question of, why can't we do this instead of this and everybody be happy? And Brazen Careerist actually took that article and posted it, but changed the headline of my article to "My One Problem with Gay Marriage." And no one that was against me actually ended up reading the article to see that I was seriously inquisitive and trying to figure out these questions that I had, and they were all attacking me, and it turned out to be one of the most popular things on their website, and it just went bananas. I mean, people were losing their crap responding to that article, and you could clearly see the things that they were saying were addressed within the article, and they were misrepresenting things completely, which I think there was an article lately where they talked about how people share things based on the headline on Facebook and never actually end up reading the article anyway, which is why we're in the mess we are in, because people rely on headlines instead of the actual article and the facts that go along with it. It's insane. But yeah, so I actually, at that point, once I felt like I was a conservative, I started reading the Constitution, and I realized that the one thing that separates us from every other country out there is our Constitution. While every other Constitution that's out there, that if it does exist, tells you what your rights are, most people don't realize that our Constitution actually tells you what the government isn't able to do to you, not what they should provide for you. So when you read it that way, and you see that this is protection from the government seizing too much power and having too much control over your life and being able to just raid your home and take over everything that you do, or take firearms away from you, or take away your free speech or anything, you get a whole different sense of what's actually going on. So at that point, I considered myself a conservative constitutionalist. And then I realized, like I said earlier in the program, that these social issues and things like that are being used to wedge us apart as Americans, and that we actually have a lot more in common. And some of these social issues, I just feel like I can get over a lot of them, as long as it doesn't deal with hurting other people. So at that point, I really consider myself now a constitutional libertarian. But listen, we have a lot more coming up. I promised you some gun talk, and that's going to be a whole next segment, along with a Relic Hunter video. Stay tuned after the commercials. We'll get back into it as soon as we get back from those. Welcome back to the Generation Y Conservative second hour here. I'm glad that you're tuning in for me tonight. Listen, a couple things. If you caught the show last week, I would actually encourage you to go back and head over to my page and actually catch the full video on either the Generation Y Conservative fan page on Facebook or the Mojo page, because apparently there was a programming error and the second hour didn't air. We had a lot of really good things going on there, so I would actually encourage you to go back and watch or listen to that. Also, with that being said, if you're listening on Mojo right now, I would actually encourage you to actually try and find that video, because along with the video, you can actually see the studio, which I'm not in today. I'm actually in my studio away from home at the apartment I stay at during the week. So Certainly check us out on social media. Just search for the Generation Y Conservative on Facebook. You can like and follow along there to see what the types of articles that we're interested in and get our commentary on them. Also, if you're interested, you can follow along on Twitter at Gen Y Conservative without the E on the end. And most importantly, I would encourage you to head over to the YouTube channel for the Generation Y Conservative. It's /Gen Y Conservative after youtube.com. Hit subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and you'll be able to see our movie reviews, the show itself, as well as things like the Relic Hunter firearms video that we're going to be showing in a couple minutes here. Listen, this half hour is brought to you by Tar River Arms. Now, this is actually kind of cool. Tar River Arms is throwing a promotion this April, and it's actually really neat. Good firearm, 6 Sauer. The P320 purchase comes with free shipping and a $25 gift card by using the promo code MOJO50P320. Pretty easy at checkout. Plus, Sig Sauer themselves is actually offering Tar River Arms guns customers 2 great offers for the P320 as well. You can actually see that by going to sigsauer.com /promotion/sig-days. And along with that, what's happening is actually if you buy a Sig Sauer P320, you'll receive a $50 promotional code via email towards the Sig store. So you can get some pretty cool products to go along with your gun there. Also, if you buy a P320 M17, you'll receive 2 free 21-round magazines, which are now legal again in California. Amen to that. The P320 comes in all shapes and sizes, and you can see some examples of those on the Tar River's website. All you have to do is head to www.tarriverarms.com. To get the free shipping, again, all you have to do is type in at checkout Mojo50P320. Tar River Arms Guns is America's virtual gun store. They provide great guns at great prices and great service. So head over there to check them out now. Also, it appears we have a new advertiser to the station, and that is Gunbox. So, listen, this is actually kind of cool. We have to, as Second Amendment lovers and supporters, do our best to keep our guns safe and out of the hands of people that shouldn't be handling them, whether that's your children, whether that's people not of the right mind, people on medication, sometimes certain types of medications, people with psychosis, people that would break into your home and try to steal them. You need to make sure that these things are locked up and safe so that you are never the victim of being accused of a crime with the firearm that is yours, but you didn't end up using. And that's where Gunbox actually gets involved. So Gunbox has 2 different boxes out right now. The Gunbox 2.0, which is an ultimate, quick, and accessible handgun safe, which is actually ideal for securing your firearm when you're not carrying it on yourself. The technology and innovative safety features provide peace of mind while storing your handgun on a nightstand, desk, countertop, or anywhere you might need fast access. With the simple swipe of a finger, guys, the press of a custom key code, or the wave of an RFID card or fob, the Gunbox opens in seconds. They have a modern design and sleek lines. It actually looks pretty cool. It looks like looks kind of futuristic, if you ask me. It's a great addition to any space, and it's actually comes in different, it fits most size handguns with room to spare for extra magazines, a blade, or other items that you may carry for protection. It was designed to be your go-to gun safe and is absolutely the best alternative for fast and reliable handgun storage. Now that's the Gunbox 2.0. There's another one called the Gunbox Echo. Now, what if you're on the road? What if you're traveling? What if you need a firearm with you to protect you and your family when you're out on the road? Well, the Gunbox Echo is the ideal travel-size gun safe, perfect for those on the go, and has the latest in technologies to secure your firearm while giving you quick access. Again, this goes along with the other one. Swipe of a finger, custom key code, or wave of a key card or fob. The Echo unlocks in seconds, and it was engineered to be compact but still large enough to fit most size handguns. So you have to check with them to make sure that your handgun would actually fit. The internal audible alarm will sound if the unit is moved, bumped, or tampered with, giving you the peace of mind that your firearm is safe and secure. How about this? For added security and safety, attach the Echo to your bed frame, desk, or inside a vehicle with a secure tether cable. That's pretty cool. The Echo is TSA approved and easily fits in your checked baggage. Its portable design makes transporting your firearm simple to and from home, the office, the shooting range, or wherever you might need it, and also fits perfectly in any car, truck, RV, or boat. So, again, if you're interested in this, go to thegunbox.com and check out the Gunbox 2.0 and the Echo. I guarantee you're not going to be disappointed with it, that's for sure. So this half hour, we actually have a couple things that we're going to be talking about in regards to firearms. And this is actually kind of cool. So this headline I just saw this week here. It's by concealednation.org. And the headline says, Son saves family of 6, takes out armed home invader with headshot while sisters hide in the closet. Now, I looked all over this article to see how old the son was that actually fired the firearm, but this was down in Houston, Texas, and it says a planned attack on a family was thwarted by the son who was returning home with his mother. Upon arrival, chaos was happening inside the home as 3 armed intruders ambushed the father as he arrived home from work and forced him inside. 2 sisters inside hid in a bedroom closet while the suspects ransacked the property. These girls were not young girls either. One was a 21-year-old and one was a 15-year-old, and they managed to hit a panic alarm as the home invasion continued. Eventually, the suspects found the girls while searching the home. One of the suspects who was armed was shot in the head, okay? So what happened was, it says shortly after this all began, the son arrived home with his mother and another sibling in the vehicle. Once he realized that something was wrong, he grabbed his gun and went in after the armed suspects in an attempt to stop them from terrorizing his family. He shot the one in the head, and the other 2 suspects jumped on the hood of the mother's car while she and another child were still inside. The mom drove away and located a police officer at a nearby Whataburger. The 2 remaining suspects stole the father's vehicle and fled the scene. The homeowner's stolen vehicle was a silver Toyota Sienna minivan with Texas license plates DGL 3948. And that's kind of important because as of this article, they still haven't found those 2 suspects. But as they pointed out in here, they're probably going to end their criminal spree going forward once they saw that their one friend was shot in the head by a homeowner. And, you know, good for them. Good for that family. Good for the family for teaching responsible safety when it comes to firearms and how to control yourself. You don't fire off a shot and hit someone in the head that easily, trust me. And, you know, I was actually trained by an NRA certified instructor, and Mo, she's at Relic Hunter Firing Line, and it was actually pretty cool. Awesome little woman who just carries cannons with her. It's amazing. But one of the things that she pointed out is, listen, in a concealed carry situation where someone is attacking you, you should not pull out your gun unless you are ready to fire it. And that has really stuck with me for quite a while, is that you don't want to take out a gun to threaten someone or wave it around just to let them know that you have it, because the distance at which your average human being can cover over the span of 6 to 20 feet is a matter of seconds when they're running at you to try and grab a gun from your hand. So what most people don't realize is when you're in a personal confrontation with someone like that, they're typically very up close to you, and if you take out something just to warn them, they could easily just sprint at you, grab the gun, turn it on you, and use it against yourself. So if you're going to carry, you should be prepared to use it in an emergency and fire as soon as it's pulled out. So you better be in a situation where it should be fired. That being said, that's one of the reasons why concealed carry people like myself are always so responsible with our guns. And we're so responsible at keeping ourselves out of dangerous situations, because we know that we have a responsibility on our back by getting the license, by going through a training and stuff, that if we are put into that type of situation, we need to know that we're not going to get in trouble with the law if we do what's right in protecting ourselves. And that's why when you look around the country, there's a lot of really BS laws out there, especially down in Florida with the well, there's a stand your ground law, right? But there's a couple states around the country where you have to, in a home invasion situation, retreat to the furthest corner of your house before being allowed to shoot upon someone that's coming in and threatening you and your property or your family. At that point, there's so many things that could go wrong. It's unbelievable. It just doesn't make any sense. I personally find that pretty fascinating, that number one, that this son was able to save his family, because this story could have gone very differently. Instead of the criminal who broke into the home getting shot in the head, these criminals could have gone in and killed the whole family. Could have killed the son, his sibling, and the mother when they got home too. It didn't end up that way, because most times, a good person with a gun can stop bad people with guns. And apparently at least two of the suspects had guns, but they didn't end up being fired at all. Another point about that, there are 400 million firearms in the United States, last counted, right? Which is pretty insane. I think that's enough for at least like two for every person or something in the United States. I forget, but it's insane the amount of firearms that there are. That being said, the majority of those firearms are actually owned by legal gun owners. Okay, if there was a problem with firearm-related deaths in association with legal owners and responsible gun owners, you would know about it, okay? You would know, because with over 400 million guns in the United States owned by legal gun owners that follow by the rules so that they don't end up in prison, that they know the responsibility that's carried with that. They know that they have to keep them safe. They have to keep them secure, as we talked about with Gunbox and Tar River Arms and everything at the beginning of this half hour. It's a responsibility that weighs heavily on those of us that have concealed carry permits. I should have started off the program apologizing. I have allergies that are kicking in, and they're really kicking my butt this year. So if my voice is a little off and kind of low key, I'm really having trouble breathing right now. So anyway, I want to move a little bit along here. So what I'm going to show you now is actually one of the collaborations that we have with a local firearm dealership. Now, what's really cool about this is the owner, Gerard, and I are friends. I've known Gerard for a little while now. We got to know each other before I found out that he owned the Relic Hunter store, the firing line. And he has been going through exponential growth with his store, and I've been along for the journey. Really interesting. Coming up in June, I'll announce more as the date gets closer, but if you happen to live in Pennsylvania, there's going to be a Second Amendment rally at the store. Last year, I was one of the main speakers. I was also the MC for the event, and we got rained out, but a lot of people did show up, including Marty Nostein and some other local representatives. We had a really good crowd of people show up. They ran some really great promotions within the store. But this year I was asked to speak again. I don't know if I'm going to be emceeing the event, but yeah, trust me, you're not going to want to miss this, because if we got rained out and still had a couple hundred people show up, if it's a nice day in June, we're going to have a ton of people showing up, hopefully thousands of people showing up. So we're really looking forward to that. That being said, the gun that we're going to be looking at tonight is the Glock 19X, which is really cool. We're gonna have Gerard go into some of the details of it. You're gonna actually get a chance to see us shooting it in the firing range, and then also stay tuned after that when they go into with Mo, who is the person that was NRA certified that trained me. You're actually gonna get a chance to see her talk about all the different types of courses and lessons that they offer at the range, which if you're a legal, law-abiding gun owner, these are the types of things that you should be attending anyway to keep yourself abreast of the current gun laws and also make sure that you know how to fire your firearm. So let's take a look at the Glock 19X presented by Relic Hunter Firing Line and the Generation Y Conservative.
Gerard here from Relic Hunter Firing Line. Today we're going to look at the Glock 19X, which was the military pistol that never was. Glock entered the military competition for a new firearm that Sig Sauer actually got the contract for later. Glock's entry was the 19X. The 19X has a Glock 19 slide and barrel with a Glock 17 frame, so that they had a longer magazine extended like the 17 does. It's a 9mm pistol and comes with a anti-extreme environment coating and night sights, and it is modeled in flat dark earth.
All right, Gerard, what do we got today?
So today we're going to shoot the Glock 19X, the military pistol that never was, Chris.
So what do people really like about this? Why is this a popular one?
Well, Glock itself is extremely popular. The fact that they submitted this gun to the Army trials for the new weapon really makes it popular with people. It has the 19 slide and the 17 frame. So it's got extended 21 round magazines, and it's got night sights, great sights on it. Let's give it a shot.
When did this lost out to SIG?
That is correct.
Okay, and when was that?
So that's a good question. It was around 2 years ago, I believe.
Okay, all right, let's see what you got.
All right. Nice. Awesome.
See what we got. This little guy right here?
Yeah.
I wouldn't worry about that little guy right there.
Yeah.
It's a Super Troopers reference.
Other than a cheek graze,
we
did it.
Yeah, we didn't go off at all. I really like the accuracy of it.
Yeah.
I had to compensate a little bit because I was a little high with these two.
Yes.
But as soon as I adjusted just slightly, I started hitting it right here.
That's awesome. Glock 19X.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. We actually have a couple more gun-related topics that we could talk about before we head into the next commercial break here. Head over to the Czech government, and here's according to independent.co.uk. It says the Czech government tells its citizens how to fight terrorists. Shoot them yourselves. Freaking men. It says a couple months ago, Czech President Milos Zeman made an unusual request. He urged citizens to arm themselves against a possible, quote, super Holocaust carried out by Muslim terrorists. Says, never mind that there are fewer than 4,000 Muslim in this country of 10 million people, gun purchases spiked. One shop owner in East Bohemia, a region in the northern center of the Czech Republic, told a local paper that people were scared of a wave of Islamists. Better to be prepared, if you ask me. So that's pretty interesting. They're actually being told, hey, listen, some crazy crap is going down, and maybe the best way to fight terrorism is to fight it yourself. And the only way to do that is to have the necessary tools. And guess what the necessary tool is? A gun. All right. All right. If you've also been paying attention, London has been in the news too, because it has now surpassed the murder rate of New York City. But the crazy thing is, in London, they have a gun ban. So why is that? well, they're having a lot of knife attacks, and the government there has actually proposed putting a ban on knives as well. It's almost like if you keep on putting restrictions on things that are used as weapons, that people will still find ways to use other things as weapons to do what they wanted to do in the first place, which is kill people. And when you take away those items that could be potentially used to also defend yourself, that those people are left defenseless, and the murder rate goes even more sky high. And that's what we see all the time. When people talk about the murder rate in Australia and London decreasing in regards to gun deaths after a gun ban takes place, well, of course, that information is absolutely true. When you ban guns in a country, the gun ratio of deaths goes down. But what they fail to recognize, or they fail to inform people on, is that the actual homicide in most of these cases rate goes up because now people are left defenseless and other means are used. They're just comparing gun deaths to the gun ban. They're not representing all murder ratios to the gun ban, okay? So always that's a good lesson. Always pay attention to what's actually being said, not what they're trying to say to you. Other article here says, according to Penn Live, so it's a Pennsylvania website, bill to take guns out of the hands of those at risk of causing harm draws bipartisan support. And this is Tom Wolf of our Pennsylvania there. 9 Pennsylvanians on average die from gun-related suicide every day, and on February 2nd, 2003, that's how Representative Jennifer O'Mara lost her father. That's how it starts off with a story, right? So it says, we're tired of people dying to gun violence in the state, and we know that ERPO is common sense and will help save lives. What is ERPO? Well, it says if Pennsylvania had an extreme risk protection order law that allows the court to order the temporary removal of firearms from individuals who pose a risk of harming themselves or others. Now, this is a sensitive topic, and I have 2 minutes to talk about before the next commercial break. But here's what I want you to realize. This is in regards to most times mental illness, okay? And why the Second Amendment is so important and why everyone should have access to the Second Amendment unless you are a convicted felon. Imagine this. Imagine if you go through a divorce, right? And you are depressed that you're going through the divorce. You feel like it wasn't your fault. You just wanted to stay together. You go and see a shrink about it. And you try to get better. You try to feel better after a situation like that. Well, the government can then, under these types of laws, see that you are being treated for depression and say, whoa, this guy has a past of depression. We can't allow them to have a firearm. And that's just the beginning, okay? They're going to go after you for anything and everything. Eventually, they're going to find ways to tie gun violence into migraines. If you ever get migraine medication, what this actually ends up doing is having a reverse effect on medication that people actually need. What you'll actually find is that when things like this are proposed, people that need medication but are gun owners end up feeling that their constitutional right outweighs their medical condition and will forego actually going for those medications, knowing that the government will then take away their property and their means of self-protection. So they don't work, they're bad news, and you can see what happens. It's just not supportive of the Constitution. Well, listen, we're going to talk about more politics when we get back from the commercial break, including Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, Beto, and Ilhan Omar, as well as my conservative reflection. So stay tuned. Welcome back to the Generation Y Conservative Show. I am your host, Chris. Welcome back to the last half hour here. This half hour is actually brought to you by the Doc Johnson Health Challenge. It was created as a challenge that Doc Thompson would be proud of and support if he were still around. It was actually created to help Brad Staggs improve his health. Once Doc Thompson passed away, I think a lot of people in the industry started taking a good look at their own health, saying, we need to do it a little bit better, right? Now, what happened to Doc was an accident, but an accident that he was involved with while trying to get healthy, literally trying to get healthy by jogging, right? But I think a lot of people around the industry actually started seeing, hey, we got some of our own health problems that we need to take care of because we only have so much time on this earth, and we need to take care of our bodies in order to take care of our families. And that's where the Doc Thompson Health Challenge actually comes in. Challenge brings the Mojo 50 community together for a common cause, which is to heal, survive, and thrive. It's a 90-day challenge that started on Monday, March 4th, but don't let that stop you because it's a 90-day challenge. 90 days can happen at any point in time. But if you go to therichsolution.com, it's hosted by Gwen Rich, who's a health advocate and founder of The Rich Solution. Now, there's 8 obstacles that people typically run into when dealing with their health. And those are diet, mental attitude, exercise, sleep, stress, environmental toxins, community, and emotional health. Now, I can tell you one thing right off the bat here. Diet, mental attitude, exercise, sleep, and stress are some of the top ones for, I would say, just about everybody. No matter how perfect a person's life seems, they're dealing with at least one of these. And maybe it's sleep. There's a lot of people that aren't getting the optimal hours of sleep based on what their body actually needs. They say 9 to 10 hours or something a night that you're supposed to get sleep. But there's some people out there that can perform absolutely great and have no bodily dysfunction with their health by getting anywhere between 3 to 6 hours. But that's something that you need to find out. Maybe that's something that you have to work with your doctor on. But a lot of us aren't getting the necessary amount of sleep that we need. And sometimes that's because of what you're thinking about. So that feeds into your mental attitude. Listen, we all need help. We all need to focus a little bit more on getting better for ourselves and our families and for just being around for people, right? So do the right thing. Go to therichsolution.com, follow along with the Doc Thompson Health Challenge, and see if you can actually start this with yourself or maybe someone else in your life that may need it. Actually point them in the right direction because you can always help people out with that as well. Also, this half hour is brought to you by Atrantil. Okay? That's how it's said in my promotional material here. It's sounded out as Atrantil. Go to lovemytummy.com/mojo. I'm going to mention that again, but here's what's going on. Atrantil is a 90 capsule box, which is normally about $39.95 per box. But when you buy 3 boxes with the coupon code, you get 3 months of supply of bloating and digestive relief for only $99. So that means you save over $20 on 3 boxes of Atrantil. It's the first ever over-the-counter proven solution for bloating, developed by a board-certified gastroenterologist, safe for daily use, and has 100% natural polyphenols designed to address bloating problems where they begin and not just treat the symptom. It's not a probiotic, it's not an antibiotic. It's a blend of polyphenols desired by your body to work as a gut regulator and end methane, and then function as a postbiotic to benefit your overall health. It's also the world's only digestive aid that contains Caberco, Colorado. For you athletes, it's also the world's only bloating remedy that is NSF certified for sport. Why would you use this? Well, if you ever feel bloat after eating, if you get abdominal distension or tightness, if you feel tired and heavy after eating a meal, like me because I eat too much, if you have unprecedented bathroom habits with constipation or sporadic diarrhea, as long as it's not explosive diarrhea, right? Symptoms that look like IBS. It's also great for athletes, gluten intolerance, anti-aging, great addition to health-conscious regimen, and if you're taking CBD, it's a powerful, with the phenols, like what are found in Atrantil, can actually allow the CBD to work better, giving you more benefit. So, again, where do you find this? Go to lovemytummy.com patreon.com/Mojo. And again, the offer right now that's going on is you get Atrantil 90 capsule box, which is usually $40 a box. If you get 3 and you use the coupon code, you get 3 months supply of bloating and digestive relief for only $99, saving you $20. Again, go to lovemytummy.com/Mojo. So this half hour, what we're actually going to be talking about is some of these liberal politicians that are just saying the dumbest things right now. First one we have up here is actually Beto O'Rourke, or Robert O'Rourke, who's going after the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who I believe personally is the modern day equivalent to Winston Churchill. Now, maybe not for Britain, right? But I think that Bibi is a bulldog for his people. I think he has his people's best interest at heart. I think he defends them. And you see that Israel is on the map with borders being surrounded by just people that want to destroy them all over the place. And really, we're one of the only allies that they have in the world, and we're across an ocean from them. And we gotta support them when we can. But Beto here just has the nastiest crap to say about Netanyahu. So let's take a look at what he has to say.
This is somebody who in a previous election warned that Arabs were coming to the polls. It's racism. This is someone who has joined forces with far-right parties who are inherently racist in their speech and the way that they want to treat their fellow human beings.
Speaking in Iowa, the Texas Democrat also said he doesn't believe Netanyahu represents the true will of the Israeli people.
So they ended that by saying that Beto feels that Netanyahu doesn't represent the true will of the Israeli people. Yet he's an elected official, right, in Israel. So he is elected based on the people to represent the people. This is the same type of attitude that the left has been suffering from when it comes to the Trump derangement syndrome, and that Trump actually won the election, that they're even considering doing away with the Electoral College and going with the true democracy, which true democracies always fail, and fail relatively quickly, because you find out very quickly that the majority of people don't know what the hell they're doing, especially when they're led like sheep into the slaughter. But Beto is a special shell kind of candidate, isn't he? He doesn't have any of his own ideas. He reacts emotionally to everything. He feels like he can eat magical dirt, which will have regenerative properties to him, and feed it to his family. His website has no information about the stances that he takes except for a donate button. And he feels like he should be molded by the American people, yet take extreme positions on everything when at his rallies that he then doesn't back up on his website. So who is Beto O'Rourke? What does he stand for besides crappy music and supposedly looks good, which he doesn't? He looks like a goofball. But to go after Benjamin Netanyahu is ridiculous to me. I'm hard-pressed to find any American politician that lives up to the standards of Netanyahu, let alone someone like Beto, who is just a tool for the Democratic Party right now. Okay, let's move on to Ilhan Omar, who, if you remember correctly, has made anti-Israel, anti-Jewish statements, and a couple other notable things that she has said that the Democratic Party distanced themselves from, but wouldn't outright go against, except for against hateful language overall. They never addressed her comments specifically. So I think they're scared of her for some reason, because she's an up-and-coming politician that's getting a lot of attention. But this woman is very scary and very not good for this country. So let's hear what she had to say when she was at a meeting, an organization for CAIR, and what she said there.
CAIR was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil liberties.
Some people did something, meaning Islamic terrorists slammed two 747s or whatever they were, full of innocent people, into two towers of innocent people and killed nearly 3,000 American lives. And consequently, afterwards, because of the destruction of that and all the hazardous material that fell from the sky and from the towers and the cleanup and everything, many more people have died of cancer-related illnesses as well from these attacks. So it's been far-reaching and far having an effect on the American people. But she seems to think that this is just something that just happened by some people, and fails to recognize where these supporters actually came from and where these terrorists actually came from. Now, the interesting thing is, I've actually gotten into an argument in the past with a family friend of ours who joined CAIR in her local college setting, and we happened to post in one of the stories that we put up about slamming against CAIR, and she attacked me like you wouldn't believe. And I clearly said back to her, you need to do your research on CAIR, because some of the top level representatives and runners of CAIR are people that have been associated with terrorist activities, and you think that they have the best interest of Muslims in this country at their heart. Completely untrue. Okay, CAIR is a fundraising arm for terrorist organizations while putting on a fake front to try and get support and sympathy from people by using people like Ilhan Omar to put on this fake representation and show that it blows your mind sometimes that we don't have an American public that can wake up and actually notice and see these things. Now, that article was actually accompanied by another video here, which I found pretty fascinating, which went into something in regards to her attacking Brian Kilmeade, I believe, for what he said about her. And it was really interesting, the type of language that she used. And we'll get into that. Let's take a look at that video real quick.
Democratic Representative Ilhan Omar on Wednesday slammed Fox News personality Brian Kilmeade for questioning if she's American first.
Thousands at the Pentagon and that Flight 93, as well as in the World Trade Center. Really? There's so few people did something? You have to wonder if she's an American first.
She wrote, "This is dangerous incitement. Given the death threats I face, I hope leaders of both parties will join me in condemning it. My love and commitment to our country and that of my colleagues should never be in question. We are all Americans."
This is her tweet in regards to that. "This is dangerous incitement. Given the death threats I face, I hope leaders of both parties will join me in condemning it." First of all, her party couldn't even condemn the anti-Semitic statements that she made on two occasions, one of which happened after she was told by the Democratic leadership not to do it anymore, and in a semi-half-hearted, half-assed apology that she gave, then went right back to the drawing board and threw out another anti-Semitic statement as well. So condemning what Brian Kilmeade says is ridiculous. She also says that it's a dangerous incitement given the death threats that she faces. Welcome to the club. Conservatives all the time, especially people like Brian Kilmeade and those in conservative media, receive piles of death threats every day from people like those that support CAIR, those in Antifa, and other far extreme leftist organizations. The only type of violence that we're actually seeing in this country, besides people like white nationalists and Richard Spencer's group and the neo-Nazis and stuff like that, which I would argue against you if you would say that that's a right group, because they believe in big centralized government. They believe in every single idea except for a few things. I forget exactly what it was now, but if you take, here's what it is. If you take all these socialist ideas and just add racism to it, that's what a neo-Nazi represents today, okay? So it's racism that defines the difference between the two. And because of that one thing, you associate it with the Republican Party instead of the party that it actually belongs to, which is the left. And believe you me when I tell you, I've met a lot more racist Democrats than I have racist Republicans. That being said, the rest of her tweet reads, "My love and commitment to our country and that of my colleagues should never be in question." Listen to last week's show that I put on. I do question it. I do question your love for your country because you don't love the United States for what it is. You love it for what you think it should be. And that's the biggest difference between those on the right and those on the left right now, is those on the right love America for what it is, based on all the faults that it's had and where it's come from to what we've built it to be, the American dream, as opposed to the left who say that they love America, but it's like an abusive relationship, right? It's the type of relationship where two people get married because they believe that they can change each other into what, and form each other into what they think that person should be. The left loves America in the same way, in that they want America to be something that it's not right now. But they will love that thing that it becomes. And that thing is something like a European nation with socialist values that always fails over there. So why would it succeed here with even more people? Doesn't make any sense. Okay, last one here is actually Alexandria Ocasio Cortez. This is mind-blowing. Time after time after time, we see these Democrats that get in front of people that change the way that they speak to match that of the crowd that they're talking to. And it's basically like dumbing down what they're saying and being just cocky and arrogant about it. You saw Obama do it with an Irish accent when he was over in Ireland. You saw Hillary Clinton kind of pandering to the two black hosts that were interviewing her at the time, and they said, well, what do you always have on you? And it was almost like a planned freaking question, and she pulls hot Tabasco sauce out of her purse to, oh my gosh, give me a freaking break. And now we have Alexandria Ocasio Cortez talking using a fake accent at this predominantly black crowd, where she's talking like an inner city person, and it's embarrassing. It's excruciating to watch this in my mind. But let's take a look real quick here.
This is what organizing looks like.
That's right.
This is what building power looks like. This is what changing the country looks like. I'm proud to be a bartender. Ain't nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with working retail, folding clothes for other people to buy. There is nothing wrong with preparing the food that your neighbors will eat.
I'm actually surprised she didn't go, ain't nothing wrong with that, child. There's something definitely wrong with what she's doing here, and it's talking down to a group of people that the Democratic Party has relied on for far too long, voting in blocks of 90% all the time in favor of the Democratic Party, based on a dangling carrot on a fishing rod that's taped to their backs of promises, hopes, and dreams and everything of what can be accomplished, what's promised to them, what is promised as far as government programs that will give them the opportunity to sit at home and not do anything and just be there and collect things. It's that dangles there that's never quite reached. You're constantly running towards it, and it's just staying right in front of you. It's a dangling carrot that keeps the Democratic Party in any type of power until that group of people wakes up. And that's exactly who Alexandria Ocasio Cortez is talking to here, belittling them by talking down to a crowd, when in actuality, the fact of the matter is that the Democratic Party is losing the black vote. It was 16% last time in voting for Donald Trump, okay? And I have a feeling it's going to get higher. And people like Candace Owens are waking people up right now in the black community to look at their values and ethics and principles and vote for the party that actually represents those. Sometimes the best type of representation isn't the type of representation that offers you things or promises you things. It's the type of government people that promise to get out of your way and allow you to achieve the apex of what you're capable of as a person, no matter what color or sex or gender or ethnic background or religious background or political background that you have. just be the opportunity to get out of your way to achieve everything that you can humanly possible without interfering or hurting another person is a type of promise that people need to make. And the fact is, the Democratic Party is waking up right now knowing that if even 20%, think about that, 4 percentage points away from what it was in the last election, if 20% of the black vote moved over to the Republican Party, the Democrats would never win again. It just takes that much. It's not much left there. And when you have people like AOC here talking down to you, it's time to start waking up and smelling the coffee and seeing what's actually going on. And it's time to start voting for your own ability to move forward in life with what's going to help you. And the only way that you're going to get help is by helping yourself out and getting yourself out of situations like this. Now it's time for my conservative reflection. You know, I look at all the major problems that we're dealing with in our country nowadays, from things that split us apart like abortion and any political topic that you can think of. And I realize more and more that we have an education problem in this country. You saw earlier tonight the video of the young girl standing up in front of her other fellow students and everything, talking to the pro-life person, trying to make an argument for killing a baby that was born after it was born in a post-abortion murder, okay? And you see these kids on college campuses trying to shut down the free speech of individuals. You see people like AOC get out there and become politicians, voted in by apparently the high intelligent, the sophisticated, intelligent people of that area. And you just got to sit back and you wonder yourself, what is going on? What is going on with our education system that we've gotten to this point where simple things like supply and demand are thrown out the window, that people believe that we have an infinite supply of resources available, right? And yet a finite supply of resources when it comes to other arguments like immigration and everything. It's amazing to me that we have to have these conversations, and it all comes back to public education. And it's amazing that more people don't look at this disconnect between the two different parties or any type of arguments that are out there and say, well, why can't we come to an agreement? Why are people so far off the mark when they're making these arguments that you believe this and I believe this? And we talked about your truth and my truth and the truth earlier tonight as well. But when it comes to the truth, why are we so far apart from each other? And to me, it does come down to public education. What is going on in our public schools anymore? You know, I moved back after I graduated from college into my hometown because I had a great school that I came out of, despite me screwing around and getting low grades and everything. The teachers were great. The system was great. And I wanted to provide an opportunity to give back to that school district, okay? And it's not until you get to, I was elected twice to the school board there, appointed the first time, elected the second time. And it's not until you actually see the wizard behind the curtain that you realize that you don't even really have a reason to be there as a director on the board anymore. You are told what's happening because of government mandates, and the only thing that you vote on anymore is really the budget and increasing taxes to fit that budget. And things are out of control. And these mandates that come down from the government are, you're going to do this or we're going to cut funding to your school. And you have your hands tied behind your back. And there's no way to go to your community and say, hey, I know you elected me on conservative principles and I was going to save you on taxes, but hey, now that I'm behind the curtains and everything, I'm seeing a different story here, and I got to come back to you and raise your taxes by an astronomical amount because the federal government is mandating that we do all this garbage in schools, including this school where our students are outperforming other schools in the country, right? And you got to say that to retired people living on a fixed income. But why is it that we have to have these arguments, that we have to get into these arguments about abortion and everything, and what science says and what people say and what is a fetus versus what is a baby. And there's a lot of misinformation floating around out there because it's not really taught in the schools. The Planned Parenthood has reached into the school systems with their tentacles to teach kids instead of the actual health advisors in the school. And we're no longer hiring qualified people to actually talk about that stuff. And if you do talk about the stuff that goes against the narrative that's out there right now, from anywhere from abortion to economics to world history, there's certain places in the country right now that Common Core has affected history where they have to talk about World War II without ever mentioning Hitler. Imagine that. Imagine trying to do that. How do you do that? It doesn't make any sense to me. So we're under all these restrictions and regulations and everything in public education, and teachers are always teaching to the next test instead of actually teaching the subject and having fun with it and getting creative. And you see these teachers quitting across the country and going to other professions because they become more like a computer spitting out information that these kids have to know for the next test instead of being able to dive into the rich, deep history and stories that go into our past and our history and everything that goes into it, and talking about running simulations of stock markets and getting involved and trying to figure out supply versus demand and actually giving examples of that so that we actually have people that understand this when they get into politics, instead of having someone like AOC who thinks that we can raise the budget by $40 trillion or $70 trillion when we're already $20 trillion in debt. Where does that money come from? And she thinks that just by taxing the rich that we can do that. By taxing them 100%, the richest in this country, the top 50% in this country, taxed at 100%, you're still not coming up with it. And these people don't get it. But yet they feed the public, the sheep of the public, the other uneducated people that believe that we can do these things because it's the right things to do morally in their mind, that money isn't a thing, that money is infinite, like I said earlier. But when it comes, if money is infinite, but we have a finite amount of resources, what do? It just doesn't make any sense. So I think once you boil everything down, you actually see that public education is a problem. And what you need to start doing is showing up to your local board meetings, getting involved, getting onto the board, getting a look behind the scenes, and actually seeing what the hell is going on in your area there. And the only way that we can move forward is by getting involved in these things. And too many of the good people that have the good common sense to change this country sit on the sidelines every single day because they're afraid of getting involved. They're afraid of putting themselves out there. They're afraid that their business is going to be affected. Well, if you have children that are in public education right now, you either need to get involved and see what's going on so that you're not surprised when they come home with all the morals and values that you've in place to them have been unraveled, or you need to pull them out of school and start homeschooling like we did. Because until then, until America starts waking up and realizing that we're putting in cookie sheets of students and they're all coming out baked the same, nothing's going to change. I'm the Generation Y conservative. Have a great night, and God bless America.